Hey guys, hCG Chica, welcome back. We are on episode 39 of the hCG Diet Interviews with Everyday People. I have KJ with me today. We have so many great things to talk about today. Not only her weight loss journey with hCG, which has now been over technically for 4 years. She's been off of hCG for 4 years. As you can see at the beginning of the interview, you saw her before and after photos. She's still healthy and doing well today. And one of the reasons for that we're going to talk about today. She's actually had a wonderful journey with health. She's actually has a few books out now, which we'll talk about. And she's just going to give us some tips on how to make that lifestyle change a permanent one so that we're not having to go back on hCG constantly, on a cycle, because that's what we want to avoid. I've been off of hCG over 3.5 years now. So that's really where we all want to get to, where we're not having to constantly be dieting, but living a healthy lifestyle where we feel good, we don't feel deprived, but we're able to keep, our bodies at a healthy weight and feel good. So anyway, welcome KJ. How are you today?
I'm fantastic. I got up early, did Bikram hot yoga, and rushed back here to set up some nice colors in the background.
Awesome. Well, thanks for doing that. Well, why don't you just start out? We'll just spend the first half of our interview here just talking about your own personal weight loss journey. Can you tell us how much weight you lost? Just the basics of how tall you are, just those basics.
I'm 5'10". And little by little over the years, I had gained weight because every time I would be mad at a boss at work, I work in a restaurant in a Hilton hotel, I would go in the back and eat a $40 piece of cheese, put my thumb in a giant piece of chocolate cake when the bosses went home, and I would punish them in that way, but really I was just punishing myself. So when I finally made the shift at 46 and said, no more, I got to choose a different route for my energy and getting out my work-related angst, I am just going to do it and do it right. My midlife crisis was to focus on me. So it was a midlife gift. I lost 50 pounds in 60 days on P2.
Wow. Were you on phase 2 for 60 days straight, or was it separated into rounds?
Nope, 60 days straight.
Wow, that is amazing. So where did you start? What was your starting weight then?
My starting weight was 183. And I didn't even know that, but I had a backache and I went to the doctor on the wrong day and her assistant forced me to get on the scale. And I'm like, no, I don't do scales. I just go by my clothes. And she's like, get on the darn scale. I'm getting you into the doctor's appointment.
Yeah.
And then I was horrified. And that's when I decided enough was enough.
Gotcha. Now it sounds like, because I read in just a little bit about you, that you used to be a model or something.
Yes, I modeled from age 4 to 35.
Gotcha.
All over the world. And so I was not eating the right things when I was modeling. It was basically apples and popcorn for a lot of time.
Wow.
Or nothing all day and then a salad for dinner. And it would just wreak havoc on my metabolism, but I didn't know that until I read and learned all about nutrition science.
Gotcha. So it's not like you have a background in knowing about this stuff. You had to learn all that later.
Yes.
Gotcha. And then would you consider yourself kind of like small boned?
No, I'm big boned.
Really?
I wear a men's 10.5 shoe. I'm huge.
Yeah? Oh, because I was thinking if you started at 183 and you lost 50 pounds, then that would have brought you down to
133.
133. So I'm just like kind of my mind's blown by that, because being 5'10", I mean, you must be pretty lean though still, because like I'm actually 5'1" and I weigh 129. And I'm a size 4. So you are still lean, you're lean though.
I'm lean and I am building muscle.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And
Yeah,
I don't have the scale anymore. I threw it away because now I go by my clothes again, because if you think about a scale, it's an instrument that shows the Earth's gravitational pull upon an object towards its center of the Earth. So if I wore a size 0, 2, or 4, and I'm ripped, and I actually see the number on a scale being 200, 400, 500, but I still look the same, that really wouldn't make a difference in my energy or my output. So I decided to put the scale away once I maintained for 3+ years.
Awesome. It's actually totally right. I put that in my workbook actually, that if you were a size 2 but you weighed 300 pounds, it would not matter that you weighed 300 pounds, because what we care about is our size and what we look like as far as, yeah, our size. That's what really matters, not our actual weight. So, yeah, very interesting. So, what was your size change then from the 183 to the 133?
I went from a 13 to a 4, 6, and sometimes 8, depending on the clothes, because I have broad shoulders.
Yeah, yeah. I actually have the same thing because you probably know I'm always talking about CrossFitting. So over time, even though I'm still a small size, I've had to get like larger and larger sports bras because my lats are just I'm just, when you gain muscle, you get bigger in certain spots. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I'm not mad. It's good.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. You get used to that look and the look of being strong, it's healthy. Well, wonderful. So you've had quite a journey, and then you use prescription hCG, is that correct, with injections?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Um, and then I just love that it's been so long since you finished your journey. Um, when you did phase three, can you tell me a little bit about that? How did that go for you, stabilization and such?
I decided that if I'm exercising with weights, I was going to have between 550 to 750 calories. And that's what a coach who coached me for free said, because our modern food doesn't have as much minerals and there's more sugar in the fruits as the agricultural goals have changed over the years. And the actual amounts of grams of protein inside each flesh, whether it was meat or fish or chicken, changed. So as I went into phase three, I stabilized perfectly. Added in, I did it in 3 divisions. I figured out my max calories, and then I added in each week 1/3 of that until I met my max calories. And at the end of my P3, I always made sure to add extra calories for my weight training or biking or hiking.
Gotcha. Could you give us a little bit more detail, like specifically, like what your max calories was and how, do you remember? It's been a
At
while.
the end of P3, my max calories was like 1,690. And then
Hmm.
the more I exercise, the more I could eat. So the benefit is you get to eat more, exercise more. And as I ate fats, my breasts came back, my cheeks came back, and my booty came back without changing weight or size.
That's a good thing. The ladies will be happy to hear that.
I went from flat to fabulous.
There you go. Very good. Awesome. So you did that for your 3 weeks and then you stabilized out pretty easily then.
Yes.
And then and then actually just to touch on phase two briefly, so you said you did the 550 to 750 depending on the day, it sounds like,
Yes.
basically to hunger and such. Was there a certain dosage that worked best for you when you did it? Did you have to adjust it all?
I use the 20 units, which is the 200 international micro units.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. All right. Well, yeah, well, let's move on then and talk about just where your journey has led you since that time in the last few years.
Okay. I'd like to share with you that on phase 4, I find phase 4 to find what my body was sensitive to. So I followed phase 4, week 1, having either a sugary type of thing or a starch, but only at one meal. Then the second week of phase 4, I did either a starch or a sugary thing at 2 meals, but never combined. Then in week 3, I decided to combine a starch and a sugar. So jelly on whole wheat toast, and saw how my body reacted to all of those things. And I was so nervous to gain weight at the end of phase 4 that I decided it was just much easier for me to live in phase 3 permanently with the odd treats here and there 20% of the time.
Gotcha, gotcha. And that sounds like a reasonable way to live too. So,
Yes, yes. I think it's really important for people to realize once you get in tune with your body by eating extremely clean, I have something that I call food freedom. Do I really want to be thinking about my size all the time? How is that putting my unique legacy, my unique imprint on the world? How can I share with the universe who I am, all of me, if all I'm thinking about is what can I eat for dinner?
yeah, no, it's so true. And that's really the place that a lot of us start out from is kind of an obsession with food. And
Yes.
it's taking up so much of our productive life and our thoughts, like you said, and it's such a waste. you know? That's true. Now, I know you're a pretty busy lady. So, do you mentioned yoga, do you have an exercise routine? What is it, right, in general now?
In general, my exercise routine is Bikram yoga in the mornings, 5 days a week. And then I go get the kids from school. And then sometimes the kids, because now they're 12 and 15, now they want to go lift weights with me at the gym. So I might do a double workout. And then once a week or twice a week, I train clients personally to help them find their food freedom, and movement is always part of it. So we go hiking in different areas around San Francisco and the Bay Area. So I'm not running marathons anymore. I ran 16 marathons and got bigger each year.
Woo!
Yes. And I have just as much stamina. So for me, it's about intense exercise, but it's got to be fun. And if it's not fun, put on your earbuds and listen to music and do something else that's going to make you joyful, because your body reacts to your choices and then your personal intensive feelings about it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it would make sense that if you're doing something that you really don't enjoy, that it would probably create a stress response, like raise your cortisol levels, and that would kind of counteract the good you're trying to do, right?
Yeah, I think that my hormones have changed. I'm 50 years old, and I find that last April I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism after I lost all this weight. And I
Mm,
saw my eating was clean, but my middle section was getting larger again. And
mm.
I was so in tune with my body, I knew something was up with my T4. And my doctor thought, oh, maybe you're being a little paranoid. And ended up, I said, I insist on just having you test my hormones. And I was 100% completely right.
Wow.
So now I'm on a natural hormone, Armour thyroid, pig's hormone, and it works. And I have no issues. And my size went back down in just 6 weeks of using the natural hormone.
That is so great to hear. And that is a really common thing for a lot of women to face. I've actually, that's one of the things that I'm frequently telling women to try to get tested for. Even just to let you guys know that are watching or listening, a lot of times the testing they do for thyroid is not the right testings that you need to ask for. So a lot of times you might have had a thyroid panel done, a generic panel, and then it'll come back and your doctor will be like, oh, your thyroid is normal. And you go on your merry way and you feel like crap. And but there's actually specific tests you need to ask for that they often don't do that will reveal a hypothyroid condition that will not be revealed oftentimes in the general panels that they do. So it's just the site that I always like to recommend is called stopthethyroidmadness.com. She has like the best information about all that, and she talks about like what KJ's taking, the Armour thyroid. There's actually several different brands of desiccated thyroid you can take. And that's great. I'm curious to hear, not to go off on a tangent, but this is really important stuff too. How did it change? It sounds like when you started it, your waistline went back down. But how did it change, like symptom wise? Did you feel less tired, or how did that change?
Yes, I love to sleep. So my whole life, my minimum's been 9 hours. And then when I had the symptoms, I was sleeping 10 and a half hours and waking up tired. And of course, I would make sure that I still did my workouts, still ate clean,
Yeah.
still was able to hike and help others on their journey. But I felt like something was just off. And I was mad at myself because I'm like, how can I be doing everything right
Right.
and still not maintaining 100% results? So once you're in tune after you eat clean, then you'll know when something is off or not. And then you can take action. And if you can't find a functional endocrinologist, I think you should try a naturopath who is more holistic, which means not holistic in a hippie way, but holistic in treating the whole human being.
Right. Yeah, no, that's really good advice, definitely. Um, yeah, that's good. So now in everyday life, with what you said you stick to phase three, so are you actually grain free?
I'm grain-free, sugar-free,
Yeah.
with the exception of I have an 80-20 rule. 80% eat clean and green, and 20% of the time party like a rock star.
Yeah, gotcha. So with what does that exactly entail being sugar free? Because sometimes that means different things to different people.
So I rarely eat fruit. And not because of the sugar, but because my cravings for fruit are gone.
Gotcha.
So if I crave fruit, I will eat fruit. But typically the cravings are once every 3 months. I'll be like, I need a banana or now,
Yeah.
or I'm going to hurt somebody.
Yeah.
Then I'll have a banana or two and I'm fine for another few months. Because all the fibers and the enzymes you can get from vegetables and non-starchy vegetables also have a lot of sugar in it because it all turns to the same thing in the bloodstream, which is glucose. So, for example, last night I had ice cream, soft ice cream, because I was craving it.
Yeah.
And I think there's a difference between a treat and a cheat. I acknowledge my craving. I had no guilt, so it wasn't a cheat, and I planned it out and thoroughly enjoyed it. Now, it might be another year before I have soft ice cream.
Yeah.
I have no issues with it because I planned it out and there's no self-deprecation afterwards. I shoulda, coulda, woulda. I shouldn't have.
That's good. That's really great. So you really are like sugar free then. Not only are you not having like honey or other like alternative things that are supposedly not sugar, even though they are sugar to me. But like in the paleo movement, but so you're not having that, but you're also not really having fruit hardly ever. So with the low carb veggies, I'm sorry, I'll let you clarify that and if you want.
All veggies, but I like again, if it's a starchy vegetable, like a sweet potato or a regular potato,
Yeah,
I'll only do it when I crave it.
gotcha.
So I'm learning how to listen to my body because I cleaned out all that stuff. And the same thing with alcohol. So they were reconstructing the Hilton for the past 9 months.
Yeah.
And as a result, most of my coworkers and I have been laid off and we're on call. So instead of working 5 days a week, I was working 1 to 3 days a week. So last year I would say, oh, I'm only going to have a glass of wine on my days off. But the more I had laid off days, it's a day off. I'm going to have a glass of wine.
Yeah.
And then it got to be every day. And then I was like, ding, ding, ding. I don't want to go down that road and have another sort of thing that I look forward to that's liquor. When's it 5 o'clock? When can I have my glass of wine?
Yeah.
So I decided to do a 60-day personal challenge. November and December are the most partying times of the year. And after I made it through that, I was like, okay, now I can go back to having wine or a cocktail once in a blue moon. And typically they're not sweet. It's just wine or a vodka martini with olive juice. So I don't have any cravings anymore like I used to. And now it's once in a while. So that's the only thing that like I would have that is sugary and stops the liver from processing foods and turns it faster into sugar.
Gotcha. And that's so great. I'm glad you shared that story because that kind of basically what it sounds like you're saying is that you kind of caught yourself in something that could turn into a negative pattern where you're kind of like you need something like a crutch or an addiction in a way, right?
Yeah.
And so with your 60-day personal challenge, you broke the cycle completely, and then you were able to reintroduce it on an occasional basis without a problem, right?
Yes. And
Yeah.
it wasn't a problem. It's not like I was getting drunk every
No,
night.
no, yeah.
I wanted to become a problem.
Yeah,
Just like
exactly.
if I would get upset with someone at work and then I'd go, put the largest piece of crappy garbage in my mouth. When I get upset around the house and I'm laid off, well, it's my day off. So I'm going to have
Yeah.
2 glasses of wine tonight. And that repetition, I wanted to be in control of who I am and what I choose, not having any outside sources do
Yeah.
that for me.
No, I totally agree with that because just with my own history of just kind of coming to, like you said, it's not like you're getting drunk or just completely, overdoing something, but just the realization that you're kind of doing something on a habitual thing where it's kind of like it's a little bit of a pain if you can't have it, and then you're like, I don't like that feeling of loss of control. And I like that you said that you did the personal challenge before reintroducing it occasionally because I think that might be one of the little factors that's often missed when people try to live change their lifestyle is that like because this is what I had to do in a similar way when I was addicted to sugar. I really was like addicted to it. I had to completely remove it, including fruit, for a period of time before I could reintroduce certain things like fruit without having cravings. If I had like just tried to, oh, I'm just going to start eating these things in moderation starting tomorrow, which I had tried. I had tried like removing all refined types of sugar and just having like whole fruits. I still had horrible cravings for sugar the whole time, and so I finally gave up and went back to chocolate cake. So, but when I actually completely removed all that stuff for a while, it's like my body was able to readjust and just rebalance. So that later I was able to have some whole fruits and stuff without feeling that pull. So, yeah.
The dragon, let's keep the dragon in the cave.
Yeah, it's just not a good feeling, to feel kind of a little bit controlled by anything like a food or a drink or something. So that's good. I'm glad you brought that out. So, okay, well then, so we talked about what you don't eat in daily life in general. So what is the bulk of your diet? What do you eat?
I'm never hungry in the morning, and I've never been hungry my entire life in the morning. So I have a couple tablespoons of organic raw cream from pastured cows. It's
Okay.
$10 for a little tub, but it lasts a long time because nobody else wants it in the house.
Uh-huh.
So I put that in my coffee, and I make super rich, dark, thick coffee. I make it very muddy, twice as strong. I have one big mug of that a day. And then I grab a gallon of water. That's my minimum now that I've upped my water. I have a gallon of water with squeezes of lemon or cucumber, and then I go exercise. And I'm so full from that gallon of water, and then the coffee had a little bit of that wake up sense and also a little bit of really good fats with vitamin K in it. I'm not hungry typically until 4 or 5.
Wow.
So if I do get up early, when I do have to take the kids to school because I work nights and my husband works varying times, then if I'm up at 6 a.m., then I might be hungry by noon. But if I'm getting up at 8 or 9 or 10 and he lets me sleep in, I won't be hungry till dinner.
Gotcha. So you actually are basically eating kind of like the intermittent fast lifestyle where you have a smaller eating window, it sounds like each day in a way.
And without even planning it, it just naturally happened.
Yeah.
And I think that is reinforced by the hCG protocol because you don't eat breakfast except for coffee, tea, or water.
Yeah.
Then you have a healthy lunch, and if you want, the apple or baked apple or whatever fruit choice, and then the same thing at dinner. So it's built in.
Right. Yeah. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit. It's interesting that you say that because I also don't eat breakfast. And as a teen, I didn't eat breakfast. And I just wasn't hungry.
Yeah.
I felt fine. And then I would read, I was thin. I was like a size 0. I was super fit. We went hiking. And I would read articles though in nutrition magazines. It said, you need to eat breakfast, you're going to gain weight, you're going to have slow metabolism. And I'd read these articles and be like, oh my God, maybe I should start eating breakfast because I'm going to gain weight and be unhealthy, even though I was actually super healthy. Um, yeah, and then to this same thing for me, it's been over 3 years. I actually don't eat. I wake up around like 8 or 9 most days, and I don't usually eat until 12 or 1. So, same thing as you almost. I have my 2 cups of black tea with a little half and half, and that's really all I need from just. And I know every person's body is different.
Right.
But one thing I wanted to point out for everyone else out there, because I wasn't aware of this either, just a lot of us have had all of that put into our heads for years about like you have to eat breakfast. Some people may need to. However, there's a really good article. It's on precisionnutrition.com. I'm going to link you guys to the article where he actually, and this isn't the only blog article that talks about it. Basically, some researchers studied all of the studies that have been done that supposedly prove that breakfast leads to weight loss or that not eating breakfast causes obesity. And all of the studies have basically been misinterpreted. So probably because different, companies wanted to, push cereals on the, general populace or something. But it does show that they're misinterpreted and that there really is no proof that eating or not eating breakfast leads to a certain result. And I just think that that's interesting because that's what I had heard my whole life. So,
If you look at indigenous tribes and you look at modern day hunting and gathering tribes, they're ripped, they're lean, and they're not eating for days sometimes, and then they gorge and pig out. And they're living long lives without any of the chronic diseases caused by inflammatory foods like processed, refined grains. I think you're right. I think it is the agricultural community and the marketers in bed with our government that put those studies together because it makes money.
Yeah, and they really, it's like there was a result, and then it's the way they report the results that gives it a certain slant. And then, and none of us are trained. Not, first of all, none of us bother to look at the studies. We just kind of believe whatever the results are reported to be. But then, even if we do, sometimes it's hard to read through that literature and get the actual results out of it because we're not trained, to know how to figure out the data. So the other thing I was thinking too is that, when you don't eat, you probably know all about this too, is your body has a chance to heal when it's not, because digesting is kind of a pretty intense thing for your body to do, and it's so when you're not eating, like with fasting, which if you're not eating breakfast, you have a longer period of time now where your body's not having to be busy with all of the digestion. Your body has a chance to actually heal and do other things it needs to do. Would you agree with that?
I do, and it also makes me sharper on my mental focus. I find that I'm able to really think clearly before I eat rather than after I eat.
Yeah, I agree. I actually have the same experience. So anyway, if that's a new thought for some of you guys out there, just feel free to research it more, because it's definitely a thing, that I think we've been ingrained with a certain mentality, but then the facts are possibly different. So with that said, why don't we move into now, maybe just kind of introduce the premise of what you're doing now, what your purpose is with your books and such. Just kind of give us a little synopsis there.
Okay, well, you did ask, and I didn't completely answer what I eat now.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah, let's talk about that.
Typically have coffee and then a lot of water infused with fruits or vegetables, to give it essence and work out. And then if I pick up my kids from school, I'll have maybe a snack with them if I'm starving, a pre-dinner snack. And if I'm not, I'll just have like the most delicious fatty foods I can find that are from grain-fed grass-fed animals. I'm sorry. I try and stay away from grain-fed animals because if I'm trying to stay away from grains, why would I eat anything that ate grains? So I use raw butter from grass-fed cows, and if I can't find that, I'll use the pasteurized Kerrygold, which is from cows that eat grass. I'll purchase eggs that are pastured, which means the chickens that lay the eggs didn't eat any grains. They're not vegetarian fed chickens because chickens are not vegetarians. So I will eat everything that's in its most natural environment that's affordable. Of course, if you can't afford $21.99 for a pastured chicken or $8.99 for a dozen eggs, it's still better for you to get eggs and chicken than it is for you to eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich on white bread and processed chips, pasta, cookies, crackers. So you have to make lifestyle choices based upon your goals and your income. So for dinner, it's usually a lot of fat with avocados, avocado oil, macadamia nuts. I prefer seafood and fish over meats, but I will eat any flesh that's 100% in its natural form and the way it's supposed to be raised. And then I do cooked vegetables and raw vegetables. And usually it's spinach, kale, burnt Brussels sprouts, burnt cabbage. If I do feel like a starchy, I'll have sweet potato or carrots, but typically I'm not in the mood for that. And I always have cold vegetables as well. And now my kids and I are totally into cooking together because they turned grain-free, sugar-free on their own after observing me for a few years.
Cool. That's really neat. It's nice when your family members can kind of come around to something that you're doing on their own, of their own accord, huh?
Especially the younger generation. My daughter's been taking cooking classes for 3 years. And then she just walked up to me one day last Easter and she's like, Mother, I'm going to give up grains and sugar. I'm like, but you're in this cooking school. How are you going to do it there? Well, it's just like any chef. I prepare for the other people, but I don't have to eat it.
Yeah.
And I was so proud because at that time, she was like 10 or 11 when she made that choice. And my son made it before her at age 12.
That's fantastic.
So I didn't want to push it on them. And we always bought them foods that their palate was used to and that they enjoyed. But they said, it's like living with a walking television commercial and sharing all my stuff with other people. And I started help other people lose their weight and gain their best life ever, that it somehow got ingrained in their bodies.
That's really neat. That's nice to hear. So for a while then, you said you were eating your new way, but then you would still buy the things that they would eat, like whatever bread or a sandwich or,
Yes.
and then for
Yes.
time they would just kind of see what you were eating and
What in my food? Because if I'm having lobster and crab and shrimp
yeah,
dipped in the best butter ever and sauteed spinach with curry sauce,
yeah,
why would they want a Subway sandwich?
right. Yeah, that's so true. Now for a while, were you having to like kind of cook two meals then for your family, like yourself and then for your kids?
Yes, I would just have make lots of good food for everybody, lots of leftovers,
Yeah.
and they would eat my leftovers. So eventually they were like, let's just all be on the same page.
Nice, nice. You know, it's interesting. It's actually pretty common. I did a survey recently of a bunch of people on my email list to find out, their eating habits, what their needs are. And I found it really interesting that a lot of people cook multiple meals for their family or they all eat different things. I was surprised by that actually. So I think it's a pretty common thing, for people to be eating a lot of different things in the same family. Yeah.
And that's perfectly okay. You just have to be mindful of it when you go shopping for the week.
Right, yeah, that's definitely. Well, good. Well, thanks for sharing what you do eat in your everyday life. So yeah, why don't you go ahead and give us a synopsis now of what your kind of like your life goals are now, how you're trying to help people and what are your book titles and what do they cover?
Okay, so after I lost the weight and I started helping people, I kept a shoebox of notes under my bed. And I would go to the library every day, some library, up to 5 libraries a day, researching on the latest cutting edge fitness and science and nutrition and old dogma versus new dogma. And I would listen to podcasts and I watched this beautiful film called The Beautiful Truth that was made by a high schooler. And all these things pointed me towards more research. And I discovered 4 anti-cancer healing therapies that are food-based, that our government has slipped under the rug for the past 100 years because it doesn't make money. I mean, I've never met a billionaire broccoli farmer.
Good point.
So the foods I discovered that were on there through my discoveries, those foods were the same foods that I was eating for fat loss. So a big ding, ding, ding went off on my head, and I kept that under the bed, and I was interviewed on another podcast, and my husband said, you can't leave that shoebox of stuff under the bed. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry, I'll put it in the basement. He's like, that's not what I mean. You have an obligation to share with the world the truth. And so that became a book called Superior Self, Reaching Superior Health for a Superior Self. And I self-published it because I didn't want to wait 5 years to get a traditional publisher. It was more important to share. So I do have a copy of it,
Yeah, show it to us.
guys.
Yeah, take a look. And you guys can find this on Amazon, correct?
Oh, yeah. Any online retailer and in San Francisco and a few of the bookstores. And if you don't want to buy it, go to your library. A lot of my libraries have it.
Gotcha. Cool.
And so I cover my personal journey. I cover basic nutrition. I cover what I eat now. I cover movement, anti-cancer healing therapies that are food-based, and how to build a tribe of support when making any lifestyle change for the better.
That's really cool. It was interesting. It's neat that you said that you're covering food-based anti-cancer therapy or whatever eating because I just read on, I think it was the Precision Nutrition site that said the ratio of people who will get cancer in their lifetime, it was astounding. I did not realize how many people will deal with cancer. It was like 2 out of 4 or 4 out of 5. I can't remember the exact ratio. If I can find it, you guys, I'll put it in the show notes. But it was an astoundingly high number of people. So this is no joke, being able to prevent that.
I think that food-based therapies work for a lot of our conditions that are chronic or
Yeah.
all of a sudden acute.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of support from the library community. I went to the library and I was like, I want to do a workshop. And they're like, everybody in San Francisco is an author. It's like New York and San Francisco. I'm like, no, 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 no. But I'm not going to charge anybody. I really want to help.
Yeah.
So they gave me a trial. And after the first self-healing workshop, the librarian who's in charge of that told me that it was the most authentic, real, loving, and helpful food-based healing workshop that she had ever had. And then she passed my name on to other libraries, and now I do at least one a month, and I'll do it in people's homes.
Great.
I teach privately. I even developed my own protocol called Superior Self's Guide to Wellness from Within, which is in the book. And if you don't want to do hCG, if you don't want to do fasting, you can always do small shifts that made with 100% commitment will lead you to better insides. And the side effect is you'll look good on the outside. But if you want chronic conditions and aches and pains associated with middle age or sports injuries, if you follow the small shifts with 100% commitment, however short or long that takes as individual, you will see life improvement in general. And then food freedom.
That's awesome. And so if anyone's in the San Francisco Bay Area, then you are consistently having different workshops then that they can check into and attend.
Oh yeah, and they're all free.
That's great. Tell us what your website blog address is, because that's probably where you keep people up to date with that.
Yes, I have a blog and a video that's 2 minutes every week, and I also have a calendar of events and newsletters, and it's www.superiorselfwithkjlandis.com.
And I'll have that in the show notes for you guys as well, so you can just click the link.
My second book came out just a couple days ago.
Oh, wow.
And this one's called How to Clean Up Your Life When the Boop Hits the Fan. And this book is a response to all the letters I got. After folks read the first book, they could recite verbatim to me all 6 protocols in my first book.
Yeah.
But somehow they self-sabotaged, or they allowed other people to sabotage them. And they just couldn't get over blank. They felt stuck. They felt paralyzed. So I started coaching people in a different way. And when I found that I was able to help them with real deep stuff, whether it was rape, incest, violence, tsunami, war refugees, immigrants, all these sorts of situations are real. The stories are in the book. And then I created Do This exercises, which helps people figure out how to get unstuck. So whether it's food, or whether it's career goals, or how to ask your boss for a raise, or how to ask the woman that you love or the man that you love to be in your life forever, those sorts of challenges, whether it's everyday drama or severe life trauma, I help people with those. And that just came out a couple days ago.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
Can you give us maybe just one example of these things you're talking about, maybe a little more in depth, like how they were able to get unstuck, like maybe just one?
Okay, so in the book I have Anastasia, who was molested by elders in her family at every family event. They would somehow sequester her. And when she had her confirmation at the church said, you are now responsible for your own deeds in the eyes of our community. So she decided no more. But because she was taken advantage of from a very young age, she didn't realize that she had the power to say no the whole time.
Gosh.
So she had her communion, and then she was able to tell these people who were taking advantage of her physically, no more. God doesn't like ugly, and you guys have been very ugly for a long time. And that was a sense of freedom. Because during the time when she was trying to protect herself from being seen as a bad child and to create ugliness so that they wouldn't be attracted to her anymore, she stuffed her face and get fatter and fatter and fatter and fatter.
Gotcha.
So when I met her, we were able to help her release all this stuff. Even though she had said no, she had gone up and down over the years with her weight. And she was finally able to let go. And some of the exercises were she would write letters to her perpetrators, but give them to me.
Yeah.
And she would also mail them to herself. or to me, and then we would read them out loud, and we would make a new palette of what she does want in her life.
Cool. That's so interesting. And so by her doing things like that, she was able to get control of how she treated her body.
Yep, get control, feel confident, and now she's doing strong woman competitions, bodybuilding competitions.
Awesome. That is fantastic. That's great. Thanks for sharing that example. So if people want to read more about different things like that, they can read that book and get more
Yes,
ideas.
yes, we use scent therapy to create really imagination memories from when you're a kid. We
Mm.
talk about essential oils for therapy, movement therapy, positive psychology with positive affirmations. To me, I think prayer is a positive affirmation. Anything that's repetitive, any sort of meditation, how to commune with nature, getting outside in nature, using your five senses. My daughter and I just created something for her when I was in a rush and I left the front door open. We come back after a couple hours and she was sure the boogeyman was in the house.
Yeah.
So I took an old flower pot and I put negative thought pot with permanent marker on it. And I cut out strips of paper and we wrote down anything that was negative about ourselves. And we rolled it up in tiny scrolls, put it in the negative thought pot, and burned it.
Mm.
And now I use that to open up every workshop, whether I'm teaching people how not to fear fat, how to read food ingredients. I teach people how to make fermented vegetables the old-fashioned way. I teach people how to make desserts so they're grain-free, sugar-free. We always start every event with a negative thought pot because it's important to let go of your belief systems that's bringing you down.
Yeah. I like that. I really like that. And I do believe in the power of doing things like that. This is probably not exactly the same thing, but when you said that, it reminded me when I was a teenager and my first boyfriend, I had all these, eventually we broke up and it was kind of yucky and I kind of hated his guts after, but I had all of these letters that he had written me. So one night it was like a closure. It was late at night after my family went to bed, and I just sat and had a little fire, and I burned everything that he'd written me, and honestly, it was really freeing, and it gave me closure.
I think that there's like the mind body. So the thoughts in your head, then it goes down through the shoulder, through the heart. So you're getting emotional ties and then physically manipulating, writing it down. Then you destroy it. And the next time that thought comes into your head, you're like,
Yeah.
I just destroyed you. Remember? You no longer have power over me. And I use it for whatever the kids and I are fearing.
That's great. That's awesome. Could I ask you real quick to share a little bit more about what you know about fermented foods? Because I know that is a really amazing good thing, and it sounds like you have a good amount of knowledge about it. So for those who aren't too familiar with what the benefits are, what it does for you, could you share that?
So when we study your intestines, a lot of times we're missing nutrition and bacteria that lives in the intestines, and then the foods that feed that bacteria in your intestines. Why are we missing the good stuff? We're missing it because we eat processed foods. So when you create an alternative to that, or if you're still eating grains and sugars, you want to make sure that you feed the good bacteria that's already living in your body. And when you do, the bacteria in your intestines gets to absorb more of the nutrition that you do feed it later on. So I teach people the old-fashioned way and really cheap how to make fermented vegetables, it tastes like sauerkraut, but I don't do vinegar or sugar. It's making itself sour by sitting in the window for 3 weeks or 2 weeks, and you constantly put the veggies in, you push them down as far as you can, then you add a little bit of salt water, and you can get a lot of these things at the dollar store. The jars, the Ziploc bags to press down, some stones for the fish tank, and then you press that on top of the Ziploc bag, and then you add more water, put your lid on. The sea salt, I mean, they don't sell 100% organic sea salt because in the most natural ways, it's already organic. It's dry salt beds.
Yeah.
So you don't have to spend a lot on that. And then you can experiment. Add your pickling spices, add some garlic, some dill, some bay leaves, some peppers, and you give yourself the chance to have a variety of vegetables, so it creates a variety of good bacteria that lives in our intestines, because that creates better absorption of the foods that you eat. And if you eat fat alongside those vegetables that are fermented, your body can absorb even more because all the vitamins and minerals are usually fat soluble in vegetables, which means your body needs the fat to carry it throughout the body to be used as fuel.
That's great. Yeah, thanks for sharing all that. Now, when people are, if they're new to eating fermented foods, I could be wrong, but aren't you supposed to kind of like slowly introduce them, not like eat 2 cups in one sitting like your first day? Do you want to share a little about that?
I suggest that the first time before you make them, which is way cheaper, purchase some at Trader Joe's, your local grocery store, Sprouts, Whole Foods, Andronico's, a high-end store that serves raw fermented vegetables. It could be kimchi, it could be sauerkraut, but it'll always be in the refrigerated section. And try a variety of those vegetables so you're making your garden more beautiful inside. And also start with only a 1/4 cup because you may get gas, you may use the restroom more, and it takes time for your body to get used to it. As your body gets used to it, then you can add larger quantities if you want, or that can be your condiment or your sauce alongside any meal.
Gotcha. It's really good, you guys. It's like if you have a burger patty and you have some fermented vegetables on top, it's so delicious. It adds so much flavor, you know. So, and I like that you can do, a lot of people think that it's just cabbage. So I like that you bring out that there's different foods you can do fermented. I mean, I've had fermented, carrots, cauliflower. I mean, you could do just about anything.
You can, and it's the ancient way of preserving foods.
Yeah.
So, the ancients got it right. I do have videos on it for free on my YouTube channel, which is Superior Self, or you can link to it from my website, and I have free recipes as well.
Great. Thank you for that.
All my blogs, because, why should I put that in a book? I might put it in a book one day, but,
Yeah.
I throw food together. I remember, Razel, you talking about how you really eat simply because you throw food together.
Yeah.
I'm very complicated with all of my spices and flavor profiles, but I just throw stuff together. So my daughter, who's in cooking school, is now working with me, creating a book that'll be called Make Food, Not War. And in parentheses, it's with your children. So she's in charge of recipe development because she knows how to do all the measuring stuff.
That's good. I know that part's confusing. Good. That's going to be awesome. Yeah, it's fun to have a project that you're continually working on,
Oh, yeah. Don't you have a project you're always
I
working
do. I know, and it's fun. It feels rewarding, especially like you said, when it's aimed at helping people in some way, with something that you've discovered that helps yourself. Well, very good. I think we've covered a lot of good stuff. Is there anything else that you feel like you want everyone to know before we finish?
One more thing I thought about it today. When I walk into a gym and I'm feeling like it's the beginning of my journey, or when you go into a space that you're not really 100% confident in, I want you guys to remember that someone else has been in your position at some time. So when I walk in and I see this gorgeous, ripped woman who does CrossFit, she's a size 420, someone else who's a size 15 is looking at me thinking the exact same thing about me. So just by you showing up and doing your best at whatever you're doing, no matter what part of your weight loss or fat loss journey on, know that you are living an example just by being you. So don't dog yourself.
Yeah, no, I think that's such a big thing. And we never know where people have come from either. It's like the only way oftentimes to get to that place where you think you'll feel comfortable being fit is to do that process, that's how a lot of us have gotten to that point. And these days, like, I feel like there are a lot of supportive environments now for people working out where you don't feel like you have to be all thin first before you walk in. I feel like there's a lot of supportive environments like that.
There's a lot of supportive environments also in the writing community. I went to a writer's workshop and it was a room of 500 writers, and I thought it would be very competitive.
Yeah.
And everybody was so loving and supportive and applauding each other when they would share something that they wrote in 4 minutes.
Yeah.
It's not like the old school where it's business against business. It's how can we uplift humanity with our own personal message. It's awesome.
That is great. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with me today. Congratulations on, just being healthy for so long now. and for continuing to share that with everyone else. Again, you guys can find her, probably best to go to her blog because she's got everything there, which was superiorselfwithkjlandis.com. And again, it'll be in the show notes. This was episode 39. So if you go to hcgchica.com/success stories, that's where I keep all of the interviews. So then you just click on 39 episode, and then it'll have all of the links to her books and to her website. And like she said, she's based in San Francisco. So if any of you guys are there, she's consistently doing workshops. Actually, tell them real quick what you do with the with seniors and real
I
quick.
have a dollar store paleo field trips that I do because a lot of seniors are on a limited income. So I bring them to different stores in my old minivan, and they go shopping, and then I take them back to a convenient meeting place for everybody. And I show them that how can we incorporate really inexpensive Asian, Latino, and dollar stores without ruining your protocol or having to go back to old processed foods.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. So you guys, if you're in that area, you should totally check that out with her.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. I appreciate it.